Hello and welcome to Lux's webinar, Profiting from Energy Storage. Let's make lots of money. My name is Andrew Stockwell. I lead Lux's research, consulting, product, and marketing teams, and I'll be your host. Our speaker today is Tim Graytek, analyst extraordinaire. Tim specializes in energy storage coverage for the energy program here at Lux. If you have any questions during the course of the presentation, either for Tim or about Lux, please email them to questions@luxresearchinc.com directly, and we will follow up with you. Before we get started, a few words about the challenges we are seeing in the energy market today and how Lux is helping companies like yours drive innovation and growth. Before we get started, a few words about the challenges we are seeing in the energy market today, based on what we know and what we hear from the marketplace, and how Lux is helping companies like yours drive innovation and growth. Overall, there are three major challenges for the energy industry at large. The first is that widespread electrification is a double-edged sword. Industries will live and die by it. Second is that distributed resources are inverting traditional business models, requiring companies to adapt through new services and systems. And third, the drive toward decarbonization is changing industries faster than infrastructure and regulations can catch up. So how do you find and foster new growth? Well, the reality is that innovation challenges today remain largely the same. However, approaches to spotting transformational technologies rely too heavily on traditional foresight and automated data. Companies today need to supercharge their innovation with the right data and insights to get at the who, what, and when of technology innovation. That's where Lux comes in. Lux provides expert curation of data developed via advanced analytics, domain knowledge from our technology experts and subject matter experts like Tim to sort the significant from the spurious, and insight on what it ultimately means and what to do about it. We are the leading provider of tech-enabled research and advisory solutions, helping clients drive growth through technology innovation. As a demonstration of our approach, I want to now pass things off to Tim, who's going to take us through a brief analysis on the state of the battery storage market, suggest a new lens through which to consider the space, and offer some suggestions on opportunities for all of you in this space. Tim, over to you.
Thanks for that introduction, Andrew. I'm Tim Graytek, an analyst covering stationary storage for Lux Research. Before I begin, I wanted to quickly provide an overview of how we cover this space at Lux. Our Owning the Energy Transition program broadly tracks innovations and trends across the energy landscape. But at a high level, we define the transition as unfolding across four key themes: the power grid of the future, carbon and emissions management, the evolution of oil and gas, and future energy sources for mobility. The title of this webinar is Profiting from Energy Storage. As I was planning this presentation, I was reminded of a line from one of my favorite songs, The Opportunities, by the British 80s group the Pet Shop Boys. That entire song was inspired by a single verse, "Let's make lots of money," from the group's lead singer. Fittingly enough, this entire webinar is similarly inspired by that line, as I think it gets the point across where stationary storage is today. Depending on your interpretation, that song is an ambitious call to arms or a con man working on his next deception. I thought it was a fitting backdrop to a webinar about stationary storage, which is an industry that has been plagued with false promises and bankruptcies for well over a decade. Understanding the real opportunities for stationary storage requires a new analytical framework. In this webinar, I hope to provide that for you. Despite the falling costs of lithium-ion batteries driven by the automotive industry and greater demand by the growing renewable energy sector, stationary storage has comparison languished. Wind and solar installations are facing higher rates of curtailment in regulated markets like China and negative pricing in deregulated markets like Germany, yet stationary storage has yet to pass even half of 1% of wind and solar capacity. If we were to put this in terms of equivalent duration of energy storage, it would only amount to 22 seconds. The question is, why? There are many causes for the slow deployment of stationary storage: market regulatory environments, necessary technology and cost improvements, but the primary reason has been the value proposition of energy storage has been difficult to describe simply. For an analogy, let's look at a case where energy storage has taken off: electric vehicles. An electric vehicle can be easily described by its constituent parts: a motor instead of an engine, a battery instead of a fuel tank, and a plug instead of a fuel pump. Motors are more efficient, electricity is cheaper, and so the value of electric vehicles is relatively quickly understood. Stationary storage seems similar, just another iteration of electrochemical systems providing a solution once offered by fossil fuels. But in fact, it's not so simple. Unlike generators, storage has a limited runtime defined by its discharge duration. It can only provide power as long as the battery is charged. It can also be sited in different locations along the electricity supply chain: generation, distribution, even sited at end customer locations. And unlike electric vehicles, which is dominated by lithium-ion batteries, stationary storage has a wide variety of technologies to potentially choose from. At its core, stationary storage has more functions and more technology options. It's impossible to consider all possible product permutations for stationary energy storage. Instead, we need a new way to think about stationary storage. We need to move from a product perspective of stationary storage to a service perspective. And this makes sense because at its core, the electricity grid today isn't a single product or technology, it's a service, providing affordable, convenient energy. In order to find opportunities for energy storage, we have to start thinking of stationary storage as a service as well. Stationary storage can provide similar services to the electricity grid: bulk capacity to match supply and demand, frequency regulation to provide system stability and quality, and infrastructure upgrade deferral to maintain the grid at lowest cost. The electricity grid doesn't need a box that can charge and discharge. It needs services. With 20-year contracts at prices below those offered by traditional fossil fuel assets, reframing stationary storage as a service rather than a product helps map energy storage onto the grid where it's needed most, something the industry has struggled with. And as we'll see shortly, thinking about storage as a service even changes the economics for the better. With this new framework of viewing storage as a service rather than a fixed product, we're better positioned to find opportunities. And where opportunities don't exist, we can make new ones. To help find opportunities in this landscape, we need a map. And in our latest report, Defining and Scouting Long Duration Energy Storage, Lux built that map. This represents the entire energy storage landscape, defined by discharge durations ranging from minutes to months, and system power ranging from small-scale kilowatts to large-scale gigawatts. To provide these services, we need energy storage technology, but as I stated before, no singular technology can cover this entire landscape. A wide variety is necessary. These color blocks represent the regions of size and discharge duration where each storage technology offers the lowest cost of service. On top of these energy storage technologies, we can overlay the requirements of different energy services. These may range from utility services like frequency regulation to services that might be needed in the future, like seasonal storage. Where we see overlap between colored blocks and open boxes are where storage technologies can provide the service at lowest cost. While this is informative in the abstract, let's look at a specific example. Let's look at the behind-the-meter storage case. Behind-the-meter energy storage has grown rapidly over the last 6 years, spurred on by the growth of other distributed energy resources like residential solar. In the US, residential energy storage has reached annual deployments of 34 megawatts per year, where residential solar has surged to 2.5 gigawatts per year. These installations represent considerable distributed resource capacity that is being leveraged by software and business models into new behind-the-meter services. Pairing distributed storage with distributed solar is an expensive proposition, between $13,000 and $15,000 at the household level. To pay for this, a battery could make better use of solar energy by storing excess energy generated midday and using it when electricity prices are highest in the afternoon. This solar self-consumption model offers payback periods for individual homeowners in the range of 9.5 years. These standalone systems don't interact and merely optimize a single home's energy demand profile. An alternative scheme that's gaining traction is the virtual power plant model, or VPP. Here, multiple standalone solar plus storage systems are aggregated together using software and controls to synchronize charge and discharge events. Together, these small individual assets can add up to a larger single capacity. This way, a virtual power plant provider can extract additional revenue by providing grid services on the wholesale market that would otherwise be impossible to access for individual solar plus storage owners. Adding revenue from frequency regulation services can reduce payback times from 9.5 years to 6.5 years. And this reduction is significant. If we were to go back to our product-only view of solar plus storage and ignore service models like VPPs, we would have to reduce the battery cost by half in order to achieve similar payback periods to the service-oriented storage model. In this way, using energy storage as a service rather than a product generates more value. We've seen how the value proposition of energy storage improves when viewed as a service rather than a product. And our energy storage service map can help us identify which technologies are best suited to provide those services. Let's take the next step and identify specific opportunities clients in the energy, materials, and digital industries can seize to make lots of money in the energy storage industry. Given that the stationary storage landscape is still very open to a variety of technologies, the first opportunity clients have is investing in new battery types and materials. Technologies like sodium-ion batteries or zinc-air batteries haven't seen a lot of commercialization, yet have shown pathways to providing new services at lower costs. Materials companies are encouraged to pursue research in these fields, but should enter the market with a manufacturing partner to increase likelihood of commercial success. Second, clients should deploy these energy storage technologies that might be more expensive up front, but have high cycle life to allow participation in many services. This service stacking model generates greater revenue, but places greater demands on battery assets. Those assets with high cycle lives that can offer multiple services will ultimately succeed and provide greater returns on investment for utilities and end customers deploying them. Finally, opportunities in stationary storage aren't limited to hardware. Clients should partner with software providers that offer asset optimization and aggregation solutions. With the rise of storage assets providing multiple services and aggregation of distributed energy resources, new focus is being put on the software that controls and optimizes those assets. Clients should develop software solutions internally or partner with startups to provide new services from an established platform. So now that we've identified the landscape, identified opportunities, we can finally make lots of money together.
Thank you, Tim. A tremendous presentation and incredibly informative. As a reminder to everybody who's listening, if you have any questions, please email us directly at questions@luxresearchinc.com. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter for ongoing information and insights. Finally, stay tuned for our blog platform, which will be launching later this month in early September. Thank you so much for your attention, and thanks again to our presenter, Tim. Have a great day, everyone.